Marvel's most anticipated movie has just hit. Fantastic Four was a crazy summer blockbuster and was incredible. And today, that's what we're talking about. Welcome back to Collard Greens and Nerdy Things, your one stop shop for all things nerdy. My name is King, and this is my co host, JC3. And today we are talking about Fantastic Four First Steps, a crazy dope movie that we were both highly anticipating. I think the whole world was and extremely excited about it. So, right now is your spoiler warning. From here on out in the show, we're going to be talking about actual stuff from the movie and will be a lot of spoilers. So, you've got your one and only spoiler warning. And don't forget to follow us on all of our social medias. You can find us at Collard Greens TV on all social medias. So follow us on TikTok. We're really active on there. And let's get into this. Let's get into the movie. So let's go with our first impressions. Jay, kick us off. What's your first impression of Fantastic Four First Steps?
First impressions of Fantastic Four First Steps. I'll tell you, I thought that this was a solid, good standalone film for the MCU. I felt like this was a really good film to reintroduce us to the Fantastic Four with the new group, with Pedro Pascal playing Mr. Fantastic. You got Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm, Invisible Woman, Evan Moss Backrack, our boy from The Bear, as the Thing, and Joseph Quinn, one of our guys from Stranger Things, R.I.P. As the Human Torch. So we have seeing this new family and the way that they worked and their new dynamic. I was actually really impressed. I got attached to the family. I ended up caring about the family. Even like at the beginning of the film, I was already attached to them, knowing that they were going to get a new member of their family coming soon, with Franklin Richards. So I was really anticipating this and hoping that they would knock it out the park. And for the most part, like I said, as a standalone film, I think they did. I think that anybody can go into this movie without seeing any of the other MCU projects and just get lost in this world because we are literally on a different Earth. We're on Earth 828 in this movie. Just completely retro futuristic 60s style that we're seeing, and we're just dumped into this world where they're the only heroes of it. And it was refreshing. It was refreshing to see. It almost felt like we were back in phase one territory. But I was very, very impressed by the film. Also impressed by the look of Galactus and the look of the Silver Surfer, which we'll get more into. What you think, King?
Oh man, I was super excited. When we first got out of the movies, I didn't know what to kind of think. I was kind of all absorbing it all, but easily this is the best Fantastic Four film I've ever seen. This really gave us the Fantastic Four that we had been hoping for over years. This is, of course, the third iteration of the Fantastic Four, and I think Marvel hit it out of the park. The world that they live in of this, like, what if the '60s became the technological age? And the science just boomed from there. They have '60s hairstyle, and kind of what if the world would look like from a '60s point of view. I love that. The blue aesthetic, really fun storyline. The actors were fantastic. Um, the pacing was pretty good. Like it felt like we were like on a good story driven beat where it didn't have a lot of, slow points and low points or big points that went back and forth. So I overall really, really enjoyed this movie, and um, this is what we've all as fans been waiting for as far as a Fantastic Four movie. So I'm extremely pleased. Walking away from it, it's again going to be the second biggest film of the summer, if not the second biggest film of the year. What I really wanted to get into was kind of what did you think of the plot and the story choice and pacing of the movie? Of course, for the viewers, the plot basically centers around Galactus coming to Earth to devour the Earth, and the Fantastic Four having to do what they can to stop him. And then they find out that he really wants their newborn child, Franklin Richards, for his own design. And now they have to scave them off. So, Jay, what did you think about that storyline and kind of what the characters were offering and the pacing?
Well, as far as the plot goes, I was actually really satisfied with the way that they went with this movie because it's not like we really need like a straightforward origin story. We already know how they get their powers. I enjoyed how we just had a quick montage, at the start of the movie, just being introduced to them and their new world, seeing all the villains that they faced, before, one including Mole Man, I believe, played by Paul Walter Hauser, which he has a really good, funny bit in the movie as well. But I like how, again, we're just rushed right in to their world. We see the villains that they fight. We see the intellect of Reed Richards. Just seeing that he's always on guard, especially knowing that they have a kid on the way now. He already has precautions, set in place for the villains that are still out there that he's concerned about before their baby, comes into the world. Um, we didn't need a straightforward origin story, so I'm glad that we didn't really get that, and I'm glad that we are introduced to them in such a way of knowing how beloved they are in their world, and just seeing the overall scope of Galactus when he showed up. Like, we felt the funny, campy hokiness in the beginning with the villains, but then when he came and the Silver Surfer came to introduce herself, that's when you knew instantly, oh, we have a problem. And seeing Reed Richards' reaction to it, trying to figure things out, but by the end of it, not really knowing what they were going to do to stop him, and his disbelief affecting not just his team, but the entire world around them. So I felt like the story was very deep. As far as the pacing goes, I think we had some pretty good pacing. Because we it's not like we rushed. It's not like we rushed into things in a manner that felt like we weren't ready for it. We knew that Sue Storm was going to be having her baby. It was cool though to see that her pregnancy was kind of induced by Galactus, and that's the way that we just get Franklin Richards just like that. So I think the pacing was fairly nice. There were maybe a couple slow parts for me, but nothing that completely took me out of the film. But I was overall pleased. What did you think?
I love the storytelling. They did a lot of kind of world building without having to specifically do the world building, showing us the world around them. It obviously seems like Reed Richards becoming the great genius that he is influenced the world around him, and you can see his technology that influenced the way that they do transportation around the city, or the blue aesthetic that they carry over into the rest of the city, or their outfits. They did a good job of really making this world where the Fantastic Four are the biggest celebrities and the biggest giants in their world. They are beloved by everyone on this planet, and they have been saving lives for now about 4 years. I loved that world building. And like you mentioned, we didn't really need an origin story. It was nice to get a quick montage for people who don't know the story, but we didn't need a giant origin story for how the Fantastic Four became the Fantastic Four. We really needed to jump into some storytelling. And I think they did a good job with that. We started to really get the world building when then all of a sudden the Silver Surfer comes out of the sky and lets the Earth know that they've been marked for death and that Galactus is on his way. And they did a good job of making Galactus, like you had mentioned earlier. A lot of the other bad guys that we had seen so far were kind of campy and street level villains, people that we knew weren't that big of a threat to the Fantastic Four. But as soon as Galactus comes, Galactus is something that even if they tried their hardest, they could not kill him or stop him. He is way more powerful than anything they've ever seen and outside their understanding. And I think they did a great job of showing when Reed Richards, who knows everything, was just saying, I don't know what to do. He even had a moment when he's talking to just the Fantastic Four, and he doesn't have an answer for what's next because Galactus is that big of a problem. And the only thing you could ever do with Galactus is scathe him off, get him to go the other way, or maybe shoot him to the other side of the galaxy. And that's kind of what they decided to do in this storyline. So I think the storytelling was really well. You had emotional beats with the baby coming and Vanessa Kirby being easily the emotional character in this story, with Ben Grimm having this kind of almost fatherly character about him where he really cares about Franklin and takes care of him. This was a standout Vanessa Kirby act role, and Sue Storm is the standout character of this team for sure.
Yeah.
But as
Yes.
we're kind of talking about that, my next question is, what do you think about Matt Shackman's direction? The tone he tried, he's putting forth in this movie, the visuals. What did you think of the directing?
I think the directing was spot on, honestly. Again, like I feel like this movie, anybody can come in and see. I feel like a lot of people, other than like they may not care too much for like MCU movies nowadays. I feel like the other end of it is people just don't know necessarily when to jump in or how to jump in, not knowing if they need to watch previous projects, to get the feel of what they're watching currently. So I think his direction was really good. I love that we had a good retro futuristic 60s aesthetic to it. Just with it felt very hopeful. Like everybody in their world, they were happy because they had faith in the Fantastic Four. Because even Sue Storm said they're all family. Like we protect you guys, but you're our family as well. Like you're one of the reasons why we do this. We love you just as much as you love us. That's also what kind of made it very heartbreaking at first to see certain people's reaction towards the Fantastic Four choosing to try to save their child rather than give it over to Galactus. And just seeing like some people just say, "Oh no, you're selfish," like it's just one life or compared to another. But that that conflict made Sue Storm's speech to the people all that more powerful. And by the end of it, that's how you felt how important that team was to that whole city and that whole world, and the fact that they had so much power in that world that they could connect with other nations and try to devise a plan with the whole world together to try to stop Galactus, try to delay him as much as possible. We've never really seen that in the superhero movie either. So the tone of it, I actually really loved it because it's the tone that we needed. We didn't need it to be absolutely serious, but when the serious moments happened, we needed to feel it. And I feel like overall we we felt it. We definitely felt it, especially by the end. But what did you think?
I think Matt Shackman did a great job. As we kind of talked off screen, he also was the director for WandaVision and really knows how to set up the way that the powers look, and the tone of the film. It had moments where you definitely feel downer, right? When they figured out that they didn't stop Galactus and the whole planet, they were gone for a month. The whole planet thought, how'd you kill Galactus? And they had to kind of look at everybody and say, we didn't. And like you had mentioned, Reed has to tell everyone that Galactus wants their kid. And that's going to automatically bring everyone into conflict. And they really played that tone well, where everyone felt kind of sad, depressed, and scared because there was only one option. And the Fantastic Four probably weren't going to choose that option. Who would offer their kid up, even if to save the planet? So I think Matt Chapman did a great job of really tonally hitting those beats and setting up these really beautiful colored scenes, from the Galactus's ship and the lava and the flowing mechanical look of the entire ship and kind of dungy, gritty look to it, to this very blue, hopeful New York that has, smiling people and kids in the streets. And we get to see Yancey Street and kids playing. I think that he did a great job of bringing in the visuals and the again goes to that world building that Matt Shackman created. I think he's done a great job, and I think he's actually one of the best to do it when it comes to hitting emotional and tonal beats in the film. So I'm a big fan of that part. Uh, Next big thing that I think I was thinking when we were there was, what are your favorite parts, and is there any part of the film that you did not like?
I would say I have a couple of favorite parts. One of my favorite parts is when they met Galactus for the first time, when the Silver Surfer led them to Galactus' ship, and just down to where he was resting, where he was sitting down, just chilling. Just the being able to see Galactus live action, that like not a dark cloud like he was in the second Fantastic Four movie. Like this was a fully grown, big, intimidating super being, and like instantly when you saw him, you're just like there's no way that you guys can defeat this thing, or for that matter, kill this being. Like if anything, all you can do is just run. It kind of had vibes of like his power level just kind of gives me like the vibes of Hela. Like this is also like a super godlike being, and you really can't kill them. All you can do is just try to hold him back as long as you can. And Ralph Ineson's performance as Galactus was top tier. He was definitely one of my favorite parts of the movie. And anytime he stepped on screen, I was definitely paying attention. I'm sorry, when he stepped on screen and when he was, stepping on buildings and streets and destroying all types of stuff. But completely intimidating. Um, I would say another favorite part of mine was the birth of Franklin Richards. That whole scene, that whole action scene where the Silver Surfer is chasing after them, trying to get their baby, and she's actually surfing, just along all this space-like debris and like through fire and these wormhole. It's a crazy sight to see, and all the while, Sue again, like you said, she is the standout of the movie. Invisible Woman is the standout of the movie because not only is she having to give birth now, but she is literally using her powers while doing it, making the ship invisible, trying to hide them. Like that is next level badassery to me. Sorry, like it was so awesome to see. And seeing Reed Richards, just try to be there for her as much as he could. And even the visual of his legs stretching from one end of the ship to the other, just because, they're kind of flying everywhere, just trying to keep themselves together. That whole scene was beautiful. And then when Franklin Richards is finally born and the whole family just gathers around him, like that was a very beautiful scene for me. Uh, as far as I can't really say that there were scenes that I can't say there were scenes I didn't like necessarily. I can probably say there were just scenes that I wanted a bit more from, but nothing in particular that I would say that I didn't like. If there was any gripe that I had with the movie was just sometimes the CG look of the baby. Don't worry, we're not in Flash territory. It's not that bad whatsoever. But there were a couple moments where I was like, okay, I can kind of tell your head's kind of wobbly a little bit, kid. Calm down. But yeah, other than that, no big complaints really on my end. How about you, though, okay?
So you actually mentioned one of my favorite parts, and that was the chase scene when Silver Surfer was chasing them, and Sue Storm is going into labor, forced labor, because Galactus started her labor. Um, you had mentioned the surfing, y'all. you probably already seen this movie if you're this far into the discussion, but her surfing out this cosmic lava and space debris near this kind of black hole is amazing. Like we haven't got to see any, you know, any character do that the same way. And then they kept some stuff in from like the original Silver Surfer and the being able to go through walls and being tangible and go through any solid object. I love that. I love how fast she can actually fly. I love that they had a really emotional beat with her being Shia LaBeouf and what happened to her planet and what happened to her people. um those were kind of some of my favorite parts. I think the best part for me was at the very end when Sue Storm essentially does her best to push Galactus into a wormhole that connects to the other side of the universe to at least give them 100 years before he comes back. But when Sue
Yeah.
uses most of her powers like that, she essentially depletes herself and she dies. And here comes the cutest little baby throughout the movie who is fussy and crying and he just wants to be held by his mom. And when he does, he realizes she's not alive anymore. And Franklin brings her back. Franklin brings her back right at the end of the movie. I mean, an emotional hit out the park. It was a beautiful moment to get them all back together. As a watcher, you're kind of feeling like, oh, damn, did they really kill off Sue Storm? And nah, she came back. She came back. So that was probably one of my favorite moments. I do love Ben Grimm walking down the street on Yancey Street and all the kids kind of messing with him and having him pick up the car and throw the car. And it's just nice to see a universe where New York and the people around them absolutely love their superheroes. So those are some of the best parts. Honestly, I don't really have any bad parts to mention for this movie. I'd say the same thing that you did about like there was a couple of moments here and there where the CGI was a little off with the baby, and that's because they used the real baby. So CGIing him being held by a fictional Ben Grimm kind of looked it a little weird here and there in those moments. But I mean,
Mhm.
other than that, there really wasn't much complaints. And I gotta give them a little kudos for using a lot of practical elements where the baby was a real baby the entire film and Galactus was the actor in a suit walking around a small itty bitty built New York. So it was every time we saw scenes of him walking in New York, it was the actual actor in the suit walking. So cool, so cool. I think there was so many good moments. Nothing really bad to say about the film altogether. Let's talk about the biggest thing. What does this mean for the MCU? What is the future of the MCU or what's next for the MCU? What do you think, Jay?
Well, when I think about what's next for us, obviously my mind will go to the mid credit scene, the mid credit scene where we see Sue Storm reading a story to our Franklin Richards, who's now 4 years old because 4 years have passed, you know, since he was born and since the events of Galactus, and she goes off to get another book and we hear some whispers in the background. And when she comes back to her son, she doesn't just come back to him. We see the mask and backside of Doctor Doom, uh, of course, played by Robert Downey Jr. We don't actually see him, but we get the confirmation that he is there. We don't know if he's from that Earth or if he's from another Earth already traveling the multiverses. We're not sure. We're not quite sure what he wants with Franklin. From the looks of it, I kind of have a theory maybe that he might have been like Franklin might have been healing Doom's face, possibly. You know, just because we know that Franklin does have out of this world powers, and Doom's mask was off. So why would that be? Or maybe he wasn't trying to scare the kid. Who knows? Uh, but as far as what's next, we what we know currently is the next Avengers movie is not going to be coming out until December of 2026. Before then, we're getting the new Spider-Man movie, which I believe comes out at the end of July of next year. And we have TV shows happening in between that, animated and live action alike. So as far as what's next, we know that we're heading towards Doomsday. I feel like, again, for the casual viewer, they will really like this film as just being a standalone film. As far as like if you're an MCU fan, like if you've been looking at these movies since the very beginning, with us being 37 movies, I think now deep with like 14 plus shows, you kind of might be wanting a little bit more. You kind of might want some things to connect a bit, like for us to actually see how the Fantastic Four end up in our world, because we based off the Thunderbolts post credit scene, we see that they end up with us, but um, it's a good and bad thing too, I think, because now it kind of leaves a little mystery. Maybe the people in that ship weren't the Fantastic Four. Maybe that's Doom and Franklin Richards, like that. It raises a lot more questions. Unfortunately, we may not have the answers to everything. We only know what we have coming movie wise, but that's a long ways away. So I'm hoping that we are left with more to ponder and maybe even more answers before we get to Doomsday. But what do you think, Kay?
So it's funny that you had said kind of the second part. I We all wonder how they're going to get to the 616. Obviously, from like you mentioned, Thunderbolts, we know that they end up in 616. How they end up in 616, who knows? Or who exactly is on the ship, who knows? I have a couple theories that I wanted to throw out here while we were talking. Was I think they might do another time jump, right? And they might, next time we see the Fantastic Four, Franklin Richards might be like 12. And during that time, Sue Storm and Reed might have already had Valeria Richards, his sister, who we didn't yet see yet. And we could either be dealing with the collapse of the multiverse, and that's why they had to leave, or they could be trying to escape Doom, or Doom could have took their ship. There's a lot of good reasons why they could end up in the 616, but I think we might get a time jump because we did have a time jump in the Thunderbolts and we had a time jump at the end of this movie. So we could actually be seeing the Fantastic Four come to the 616 10, 15 years later after we saw the finish of their film. So I'm curious because if we're starting to roll towards Secret Wars, Franklin and Valeria were older at that point. They were, young teens from like 10 to 13 years old in that area. So we might need to age them up. So who knows what that next little gap was going to be. But I think the future of this story, everything is leading towards Doomsday and Secret Wars. So everything that we're going to see from Wonder Man at the end of the year, possibly from Eyes of Wakanda that starts next week, and all of these things might be just gearing us all towards Doomsday and Secret Wars, and that's where I hope we end off because there's a lot to do with the Fantastic Four in the Secret Wars story. So I kind of those are my little theories. I think we might get a big time jump, and we might see older Franklin Richards and Valeria. And I heard a rumor that the Doom that we saw might not actually have the scars on his face like original Doom, and it might be a story that Doom uses his technology and magic to basically put himself in Tony Stark's body. And that's why we see him looking like Tony Stark versus looking like Victor Von Doom. So, kind of like a superior Spider Man storyline is kind of the rumor. So, we'll see what happens. I think that's a fun rumor to play with. And if you made it this far, go down and tell me what you think about that theory of mine and some of the stuff I've read on the internet. But let's kind of move into our last section and get our final thoughts. I'm gonna do my final thoughts first, and then I'm gonna let Jay do his final thoughts and close out the show. So my final thoughts for me, this is another 8 out of 10. This is another big big summer blockbuster movie. I can't right now say that it's better or worse than Superman. I think they are both neck and neck. I kind of agree with the internet that those two kind of run the race together. They have a lot of parallels. Two of their bad guys were pushed into black holes to the other side of the universe. So I think overall, I'm very happy with Fantastic Four. I'm very happy with Marvel. And if this Thunderbolts and Ironheart are the things that show us what's to come, I think we're in for another great 10 years. I think we're back at the beginning when good storytelling's happening. And I love this movie. I think people should go out and see it again and again. Take your families. It's worth your money. It's worth your time. And again, I give it an 8 out of 10. And that's my final thoughts. What are your final thoughts, Jay?
Uh, I'll say that I really did enjoy the movie. It was a solid, good time for me. I think you liked it maybe just a little bit more than I did, which is cool. It's all good. Me personally, I would probably give this a solid 7 out of 10. It was a good movie, like I said, standalone for me all around. I enjoyed the family. I grew attached to the family. I liked the drama, the story, the plot that we had. Again, Galactus was great. I also enjoyed that we had some callbacks to our previous movies. I believe, just especially from the second Fantastic Four movie, just with the Human Torch chasing Silver Surfer up to space, and then her shooing him off, and him falling back down to Earth, like the second movie, and also even when Invisible woman, sorry, sacrificed herself at the end. She did the same thing in the second Fantastic Four, only Silver Surfer saved her in that movie. So I think that was a nice little touch that they made. Usually, I'm always like, be your own movie, but I do enjoy callbacks like that, especially when you could make them more big and more epic. And I think Sue Storm pushing back Galactus to save her child, I feel like that's more epic. So, like I said, this was a really good, solid time for me. My only thing, again, just being an MCU fan, is I feel like with this being Phase 6, it's like I feel like I want us to kind of just like kind of piece a bit more together. I understand we gotta wait, we gotta let them cook. I just want us to connect more dots, because I guess I kind of think back to like a movie like Thor Ragnarok. When we're in the last phase and Thor loses a whole planet. I feel like I did like the ending of this movie, but I kind of still wanted them to go with the theory that we originally had, which was Galactus, eats their world. They can't stop him, and he takes the planet, and they have to find a way off the planet, and that's how they end up with us. Even though that's not what we got, again, still enjoyed that ending. I just feel like it would have pieced things, more together, just for me personally. But I did still enjoy myself. It was a really good time. Um, Sorry, I will say that I do think Superman was just a little better than this, but it doesn't take away from the film. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't see it if you're not a Marvel fan, if you're not an MCU fan, if you're just a Fantastic Four fan in general. I feel like you will absolutely love this movie and agree with me, myself, and this gentleman when we say this is indeed the best Fantastic Four movie that we have gotten ever in life. So definitely check it out. Thank you all for looking at us this far, and thank you for liking, sharing, subscribing. Please keep doing that. Comment always. And all I'll say from here is stay nerdy, my friends.